Back in 1936, playing with a dog was a favorite pastime at the Barstow residence in Hartford, Connecticut. One afternoon, young Paul Barstow, while engaging in another of his favorite pastimes, reading about Tarzan of the Apes, suddenly was struck with a brilliant idea. Why not go to Africa and find Tarzan in person? So here we have Paulus Rufus Barstenio, the eminent African explorer, all rigged out and ready to start on this historic safari. He had enlisted 3 neighborhood friends to join him on this great adventure. And they immediately set out for the wilds of Africa. When they finally arrived in the jungle, they found a promising-looking mountain pathway, and Paulus kept count of his helmeted and jacketed fellow travelers. 1, 2, and 3, identified on the back of their jackets as being true loves, while they all headed downward into the forest, being careful to avoid wild animals and other creatures that they knew were around. But they had this great goal of seeking to find the real Tarzan. They came across a small mountain stream and decided to cross it. Paulus led the way, and notice, please, his socks as he leaps skillfully from rock to rock. On the other side of the stream there was a giant boulder. And what do we have here? Some strange character is looking out from around the rock. Why, it is none other than Mahatme Slinkaround, coming out to greet the safari. But as he greets them, he also gives them a solemn warning. You go away. You no come here. This Tarzan country. Tarzan lives here. You stay away. Well, they immediately went into a huddle to decide what to do, and of course decided that they wanted to continue because this was just the reason they had come here, to see Tarzan. And then Paulus Rufus Barstenio made a nearly fatal error. He let Mahatme Slinkaround get away. But the safari, knowing now that they were in the area where they might find Tarzan, continued on their way up this mountain stream, along the side of a rocky gorge, and to a cliff overlooking a waterfall and a small pool. What a beautiful spot! It was a hot summer day, so Paulus took off his hat. But here is Slinkaround up on the opposite hillside. What is he up to? Paulus takes off some more of his clothing so he can be free to breathe in the fresh air on the top of the waterfall. He doesn't see Slinkaround over there. He's just enjoying the atmosphere. But Slinkaround has a gun in his hand. Look out, Paulus! Oh, 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 oh! I've been hit! He falls over the falls, down into the pool below. Slinkaround must have really been desperate to try to stop him that way. But the safari members come to Paul's rescue. They jump into the pool. They dive down into the pool. Well, they get into the water below one way or another. And then the 3 of them together, grabbing Paulus and nearly drowning him in the process, managed nevertheless to tow him over towards the shore so they can seek to resuscitate him. Careful now. Carry him up to the beach there. Watch out. Oops. Well, then these three beautiful trail mates revive him with kisses. And Paulus is as good as new and ready to start out again. So now they proceed more cautiously up the trail here. They have to beware of this man who had warned them. He must have been trying to protect Tarzan from these intruders. And there he is, up the trail ahead of them. "Stay behind, girls. I'll take care of this," says Paulus. And so brave Paulus Rufus Barstow moves up the trail behind Slinkaround. And he grabs him, and they engage in a titanic hand-to-hand struggle. Finally, Paulus wrests the gun away from him and then forces Slinkaround to go back down to where the safari members are. Slinkaround bows politely, but now they tell him, "We came here to find Tarzan, and we want you to show us where he is." So Slinkaround, with a gun in his back, had no choice but to lead the safari to where the Tarzan he had tried to protect from these intruders was. This was perhaps the most exciting and dangerous part of the entire journey, because they were right here going to have to get into this mountain stream, infested with crocodiles and no doubt hippopotami and other wild animals inhabiting the area. But they bravely followed Slinkaround, plunging into the pool, swimming upstream, and climbing over the great rocks in this spectacular gorge. This was a tremendous natural rocky gorge. It must have been at least 50 feet high from the bottom up to the top. And what a great location where they hoped now they would come across Tarzan in person. Fortunately, the members of the safari had brought their bathing suits with them, so they didn't mind getting into the water, though one of them did get stuck on a big rock. Then suddenly they heard a cry. "Oh! Oh! Oh!" Look, up there on top of the rocks. "Oh! Oh! It's none other than Tarzan himself. And tearing down over the rocks on the mountainside, Tarzan comes to greet them all. He seems to welcome these visitors. He comes over and gives each one of them the jungle greeting. "Fine," he says. "I'm glad to see you here. It's fun to have someone come and see me. Let me show you around." One of the members of the safari had found herself a bathtub right there in the rocks where the water was rushing by. This was much to Tarzan's amusement. "Ha, ha, 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 ha." Then Tarzan took Paulus Rufus Barstow up to the top of a tall cliff, and he showed him what he liked to do just for fun, jumping off the top of the cliff down 15 feet into the water below. And believe it or not, Paulus was able to get up his courage and also jump off the cliff into the pool below. But then Tarzan showed them a feat only he could perform, leaping out over the waterfall into another shallow pool where he would sometimes get stuck in the bottom. Doing it again, he managed eventually to make his way up to the surface. And that was quite a thrill. But then, having shared these adventures with all of them, Tarzan had to say goodbye and take his departure. Diving off into 6 inches of water, he struggled upstream, and that was the last they saw of the great Tarzan in person. They had certainly had a wonderful time. On the way home, some of them started looking for the jewels of Opar in the water of the pool. Mahahatme Slinkaround had decided to reform and to return to civilization with the safari. He decided that Tarzan didn't need him to protect him anymore. When they got back to dry land, they shared many tales about their fantastic adventures. They kept trying to decide whether the real Tarzan was better than the book Tarzan. Slinkaround insisted that the real Tarzan was much better than the book Tarzan. But in any case, Tarzan had always been one of Paulus Rufus Barstenio's great heroes, and they had finally realized their dream of seeing him in person. Tarzan, my Tarzan.